Hello and welcome to watching me start my business. I'm taking you through my Kickstarter journey. We've gone through a whole host of things such as what I've picked, which is the Ray Bradbury challenge, and how I'm going to make that into a product. So stay tuned and I'll take you through how it aligns to my ultimate grand vision. So what you can see, as I was saying, we've gone through the poem, which is Ozymandias by Percy Shelley. We've gone through why I picked a poem, and we've got the desirable, viable, and feasible. So we're still at understanding the problem in the discover phase. That'll be changing over time. And what we have is we're now going to go into the North Star. So does this actually align with who I am? And so let's take a look, find out if it's tick or a cross, and we'll take it from there. So my big grand scheme things is I'm about education. I think there's a whole host of knowledge that's missing and that people can't digest. So I want to take complexity, essentially, and I want to reduce it to simplicity. So that's really, really hard because you don't want to reduce the dimensions. That's one way, but you want to make sure that you're still able to get to the root cause. So perfect example is I've got a cold. You can treat the cold, but you could have gotten the cold a whole host of ways. Maybe you're not wearing appropriate clothing outside. Maybe you've got a weak immune system. Maybe you've got not the best nutrition. Maybe you're in a place which is ravaged by viruses. Each one of them warrants further investigation rather than just treating the cold. So in reducing complexity, I don't want to lose the dimensions. Now, one of my theses is that, or hypothesis actually, is that there is so much information out there, more than ever before. And to achieve what I want to, I need to take it off people's plates, not add to it. So I want to take off people's plates, and I want to also help people get the impact they want. So instead of adding more, do less, get better results. So do less, get better results. And so what that means is I'm going to focus on the areas which will improve people's thinking and outcomes. So one of those areas which is oversaturated is the amount of media out there. Like I think there's 500,000 books a year released in the US alone. How do you know what's good? How do you know what's quality? And that's just that year. What about all the ones before, even potentially before the printing press? So let's break that down. So how am I doing that? I'm going to be doing the Ray Bradbury challenge, which allows us to look at content that's out there and pick 1,000 really good poems, stories, short stories, or essays. So yes, you have a poem. So you have a poem. And I really like that. Poem's public domain, which means it's able to be used everywhere for free. But what's the insights out of that? Now, I want to combine a whole host of ways so that when you pick it up, you're not just reading the poem, you're seeing the visuals that someone else has done, and it's really marinating your eyes. So my grand scheme is when you look at a Harvard Business Review case study, they say that that CEO had 10% of the information that's available. So that CEO is making 10% of decisions, making key decisions with only 10% of the information after the fact. Same with all these authors. So like Lovecraft died poor. Da Vinci, pretty sure he died poor. Came from a rich family, but he wasn't living the wealth up that he would have now. Take it with a grain of salt if it's wrong. But the key is we can look at these people's lives, we can look at their stories. So if we were to look at Ozymandias, he may not have known, I don't actually know if he was wealthy or not, or had success or not, but what that poem represents could be so much more than it was. So let's look at Ozymandias when it was written, and then let's look at how it is after. So what that means is we're looking at it, we're looking at insights that can be applied today, but we're also looking at areas where you're seeing the before and the after. So you can look at a story and you can say, story is written, but what's the impact going to be? And we can actually start to now look at what that impact is. Someone's the next, start with why. Perfect example. Absolutely fantastic. People are looking at the why. One way to do this, which I don't know what it's going to look like, it's just pointing me in the right direction, is education. And so education has a whole host of ways that you can do things. So this is from tejadastots.com, sure. But I really like what they have. So you've got visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic. And I really like this because it takes into consideration a lot of different learning styles. And I looked up how they recommend that you teach something. So for this one, it's looking at activities which are words. So it's like, read it, point out the tricky parts and phonetic rules. So it could be the same with a poem, point out the structure of a poem. It then could be read it in context. It could be reading the Ozymandias in the context of the time. It could be say and spell. So as an example down here, so it's read, focus on it, the context, say and spell. So they use the THE, the. Spell as a word with your body, which is fine for education and words and spelling where you can make that. Have to figure out something similar for the poem. And then students follow kids on screen, build the words, and then they're able to learn it. So it's a kind of thing where you can look at something, you can recognize, you can understand the context more than just reading what it is. And I think that's the key part, is it's going to be more than just the poem. Like, I could just write 1,000 things, but you need to know what impact you're getting for each poem that you're reading, each short story, and each essay. Ideally, you want to link the three. So if you have A Night In with Nate as an example, you know what you're getting, and you know that, let's say it's psychology, and let's say we're going to investigate that with a poem, a short story, a essay. And so that's one. And now then the next one could be, let's say, financials. And so you know they're very similar to mental models from Charlie Munger and Shane Parrish, and I absolutely love it.